I'm a community planner. My commitment to Cincinnati Public Schools came from birth. Both my parents were educators in the school district. I've been familiar with the Cincinnati Public Schools all of my life. I am committed to changing the district for all children. I am clear that the district works for some and works and does not work for most. That commitment is demonstrated through a redesign program that I initiated with other board members. We have a majority now who are working toward that. I think the biggest thing that I've done since a school board member is to change the funding such that neighborhood schools were equal to land.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Eve Bolton, and I'm running for Cincinnati School Board. As many of you know, Dr. Florence Newell and Governor Gilligan decided not to seek re-election. So there are 2 open seats and also an incumbent running for re-election, Mr. Williams. I am a school teacher by trade for 35 years. I have been the Teachers Union President for about 25 years, largely because nobody else wants to be the Teachers Union President in my district because it's a pretty much pro-management district, but we've found common ground. It is my hope that some of my experience that I have as a person that was elected in Mount Healthy when I lived there and was the ranking minority member on the Finance Committee when indeed Mount Healthy faced financial disaster. And when I was county recorder, I realized very much so that the voters were sending me there to restructure the bureaucracy and make it more customer friendly. I would love to bring my educational expertise. I would love to bring my devotion and loyalty to Cincinnati Public as a proud graduate of Cincinnati Public to the board. Thank you very much.
Good evening. My name is Chris Downs. I'm a candidate for Cincinnati Public School Board. Currently employed with Children's Hospital, going to the school system daily and do preventive education to school-aged children. I'm an adjunct instructor at Cincinnati State where I teach about 8 courses. I'm also a graduate of Taft High School. I'm also a military vet, former professional player with the Reds organization, an ordained minister. I currently have 5 grandchildren in this very school system. I'm running because there's a need for a new direction. I'm running because one of my philosophies is to bring the school board back to the community in which it was designed to serve. One of the things that we hope to do is to lend new direction to that thrust and to make sure that everybody in the community that's a vested stakeholder, from the CFT, from the teachers, to the board, to the community, will have a vested say-so and a vested input in lending themselves to that direction.
Okay, the Education Committee has come up with a list of 5 questions for the candidates that were submitted to them, and we'll run through the questions one at a time, and we would like to have an answer from each candidate and limit an answer to 1 minute, please. Okay, what qualities or attributes are you looking for in a superintendent, and should his or her evaluation be tied to student performance?
Testing. Well, assuming that the superintendent that we're looking for meet all the educational requirements, at this point in time, one of the things I feel that the superintendent that we're seeking has to be a master motivator because of the low morale that currently exists in the system. He has to be a consensus builder, visible in the community. One of the things I feel that he must be is spiritually grounded, not specifically an educator, but a good manager with experience in an urban district, someone that's committed to staying with this very district for at least 5 years for continuity, someone with compassion and sensitivity about social justice issues, the ability to work with, again, the aforementioned stakeholders, an ability to relate to the educational reality of our kids, and to have the values and the morals and the ethics to do the right thing. No, I don't believe that his evaluation should be tied to student performance. I think we should continue to put the onus on parents, principals, and teachers.
Yes, I think the very first decision that the board will face is finding a new superintendent. I believe that search needs to be worldwide. I would prefer an educator, but I'm willing to go outside the educational field. If we got an educator, what I would look for is a superintendent that can be comfortable with the hierarchy that we have from the standpoint of district decisions, but also one that will grant it and keep going, the decentralized decision maker at site base. I think that's the most efficient way to run any kind of organization. The qualities that I would look for, besides it being moral and integrity and what have you, and a good leader, I would like to plug in a superintendent that is particularly strong in the areas where we are weak. We are particularly weak in primary and elementary education rather than high school education. I would like to plug in someone that understands what it's like to be in a district where 65% of the children are categorized by the state of Ohio as economically disadvantaged. And I would like somebody that believes that we need to have a giant team teaching our children, and someone that places children above all else.
My sister.
First, I believe that the superintendent must be held, a part of their evaluation should be student performance. I believe that a part of all adults in the district, their evaluation should be student performance based. The qualities and attributes that I believe a superintendent must have, I believe that all of the things I will list should be demonstrated. They should have demonstrated leadership skills. They should have demonstrated intelligence, heart and compassion for children, experience in changing large bureaucratic organizations, redirecting them, because that's what our district needs. When you don't have but 11% of children in Ohio who are African American who can meet the math standard for college, I think that we need a superintendent that does not base our performance on state measures, but can work with the community to develop our measures that demonstrate our values and our commitment to education.
Before we continue, let me just interrupt for a moment. I'm going to ask all the people who are gathered in the back, if you are in red and black, one of Delta Sigma Theta is handing out index cards, I'm going to ask you to please find a seat. Any candidates, please do not politic now. Please come to the front and have a seat, just so that we can be courteous to those persons who are speaking. Thank you very much.
Okay. And next question is, should teacher performance evaluations be connected to academic achievement? Why?
Alternate, or should I take it? Okay. Yes, as I said in the previous question, I believe that all of the staff, everyone involved with Cincinnati Public Schools, should be held accountable for student performance. That is our mission. And so there's no reason why there should be anyone who is responsible for that education should be exempt from having as a part of their evaluation the academic performance of students. That's why we're here, that's why the district exists, and that's how we serve the community and the families.
Let me answer the first question that I passed up, which is I do think that the superintendent as the educational leader should be evaluated in part based upon district achievement standards and benchmarks that the board establishes. As a teacher, I have some issues regarding the idea of connecting everyday action in the classroom and final scoring on testing with particular children, because it cannot be done across the boards. Some of our teachers are teaching people that are advanced placement kind of kids. Some are teaching people with special needs. So it begins to be impossible to do what we're talking about individually. What they have done in New York City occasionally is connect teacher bonuses and pay if indeed a school community indeed begins to achieve. And I think that's something we want to look for. The other thing I'd like to really say real quickly is that we've got to stop talking about achievement, and we have to start talking about our children's growth. Measuring growth is really what's important, rather than comparing this 5th grade with that other 5th grade.
I have more sisters. Or it's the same one, I don't know.
Yes, performance should be tied to teachers and related to academic achievement, primarily because teachers are the first frontline providers for education and the curriculum that they teach. School is only an extension of home. Plus, many extenuating circumstances that does affect a children's or a child's ability to learn. Some teachers should learn what cultural competencies they have to address, what social impactors the kids are affected by. A teacher should educate him or herself to recognize these impactors and manage the classroom, become more culturally competent so that they can provide the necessary training, the necessary teaching for the kids that they inherit.
Okay, the next question is, what are the 3 biggest challenges facing Cincinnati Public Schools, and how would you address them?
Well, as we all know, unfortunately, there are more than 3, but I will name 3, and they aren't necessarily 1, 2, 3. It's because it's a bigger picture than that. But first and foremost, sound fiscal management. I believe that this levy is frankly 2 years too late, and I don't think any organization should drain itself to the bone or to the bottom of the bucket and then go and have to beg instead of ask or request. So sound fiscal management. Student achievement being competitive and student growth being competitive in our marketplace. Our children in Cincinnati are competing with people in Wyoming and in Lakota and in northern Kentucky, and now they compete with children around the world. So we must make them much more competitive through growth and through achievement. And the other third thing is something that Chris hit on, which is the morale of the entire teaching staff and support staff. Everyone in a school helps a child learn. Everyone in a school helps a child feel that it's a nurturing environment. And I feel very strongly, having visited with a number of employees, the reality is we do need a cheerleader. We need to market the school system, and we need to tell the people that teach our children, we trust you, and give them their rein and do what they need to do to make them competitive.
The first issue I bring up is the building program. We are about halfway through the building program. We are starting to acknowledge that we have buildings that are going to be empty and not used throughout the community. It is important for us to start to address with neighborhoods what's the best that can happen to those properties and contribute to the development of those neighborhoods. The second issue I'll bring up is the finances. Clearly, we do need this tax levy in order to operate the schools, but we also need to better align the expenses to the revenue, and that's an important piece in redesigning the district in order to make that happen. We are currently in the process of using dollars for subsequent years to operate the current year, and we have to balance that. Thirdly, I would say that we are not performing well at all with our K-8 schools. Our elementary schools are not performing well, or we have some performance and growth in the high schools. So we need to better align our K-8 schools in the performance.
Again, some of the biggest challenges that I see is we spend a lot of time promoting policies and proficiency tests. And when we pass policies, we oftentimes forget about the people and the children that the policies are meant for. Some of the biggest challenges, again, are low morale in a system which affects a whole community. We talk about the pending tax levy, which we must pass, so we have to make a concerted decision to either, again, invest in our education, build more jails, or again, decide that we're going to educate our children. There's a fragmented school board that exists. The male graduation rate, especially among African-American males, is something that we must address. Declining enrollment, and one of the things I would suggest we do is create across-the-board accountability just for that, enhance stakeholders' involvement, stick to the strategic and master facility plan, and to be proactive and less reactive to the issues, the real issues that we're currently facing.
Okay, then we have 2 questions from the floor. When the district was predominantly white, things seem to get done. Now that the district is made more of black students, we seem to have so many problems. How will you deal with what I see as a disparity based on race?
Well, school is only a microcosm of a large society at whole. As a school board educator and teacher, I've always noticed that there's and devaluing when it comes to the well-being of African American kids or people of color. So some of the things we must address is a disparity, no matter how small, to get away from the prima donna mindset that persists with some schools, the magnet attitude that exists in some schools, and make sure that the low performing schools such as Rothenberg, Vine Elementary, and Hayes are given the same resources needed to succeed.
A question from the floor, in part is one of the kind of a follow-up question too to the last question we were asked to prepare for, which was achievement gap, and indeed that's part of it. First thing I would suggest about the achievement gap, and then this perceived, and I believe correctly perceived, disparity, white and black. The issue is this: we have to focus on growth. The way to focus on growth is to move not away from, but to lessen the significance of the state tests and move towards what is called value-added testing, where indeed you project for each child what their growth rate would be for that year, and then you hold the teacher and the child and the parents accountable, and you find out which teachers and which kids are moving ahead, which ones aren't. The other thing, the single most important thing, besides I think adding value-added, especially K3, maybe even K6, would be, very frankly, to refocus our attention on neighborhood schools.
There is a disparity, and the question is, I believe, accurate. One of the main issues that I believe we face that causes that problem is we have very little expectation for the students in this city. We have low expectations for the youth, and that's not just a Cincinnati Public School issue, that is a community issue. One of the ways that we have to get beyond that is to first have a community that demands more from Cincinnati Public, that actually will not allow this to continue. We have to have staff that is committed and accountable, and then if they aren't performing, they're gone. And we have to have a district that is win-win, such that it works for students, it works for parents, and it works for staff. We cannot be blaming each other any longer.
All right, well, thank you. Our segment is up. Our time is up.
Thank you
I'd just
very
like
much.
to ask if anyone who's interested, we will be actually working to help address some of the issues. We meet second Thursday of every month at 6 o'clock, and you can call the office for more information. Thank you.
Thank you. But before our school board candidates leave, we have a couple of questions directed from our youth council, which we'd like you to address. If they would come forward, please.
Hi, my name is Aisha Harper. I'm the second member of the NAACP Cincinnati Beacon. And my question has to do with Cincinnati Public Schools, and I was wondering what the rating was for the rating of its excellency or not for the Cincinnati Public School, and I was wondering what, like, we would do under your leadership to bring up Cincinnati Public Schools to excellency levels.
The current rating for Cincinnati Public Schools is continuous improvement, which is, if I can just be brief and really minimize it, just for conversation, which is a C. It's middle of the range of the report card for the state. I think the best thing to do about that is to ignore the fact that the state has this report card. It's very much based in minimums. I don't think we should be teaching to that. I don't think we should celebrate at that level. I think if we had higher expectations and we had a district around high expectations of performance, those things would take care of themselves and we'd be rather excellent pretty quickly because it's based on minimum.
Michelle, what I would suggest again for our primary grades is something called value added, which measures growth. When we get into the middle grades, a lot more character education, values education is needed. I think that's one of the reasons people turn to charter schools, not only for their size, but also because they want more discipline in a values, character building way. In our high school, I would suggest we expand as much as we can a curriculum, as Mr. Williams says, that is not based solely upon these minimal state standards. The state standards, as you probably know and getting ready for those tests, is pretty darn boring. I think we need to have a curriculum that indeed rewards children by saying, we think you are smarter than this, We think you can go farther than these state minimum standards would indicate. We think you ought to get on a bus and go to the symphony when you're growing up. We think you ought to be able to take the field trips to develop the total person. And I think extend extracurricular activities significantly.
Well, ditto to everything. I would also like to say sometimes we already have a model in our very district. If you look at Walnut Hills, that's above achievement. Why not model what Walnut Hills is doing and duplicate that throughout the whole system? One of the things I'm really high on is extracurricular activity involvement for all students. And if we create extracurricular activities that will meet more students where they are, there is a direct correlation between extracurricular involvement and academic achievement.
Hi, my name is Tasha Baker. I'm a member of the NAACP Youth Council, and my question has to do with youth ages from ages 13 to 18 involved in extracurricular activities. So I was wondering if under your leadership, how do you increase the number of extracurricular activities in schools and in the community?
Well, as an athletic director at Hughes,
Mr. Hughes, I'm sorry, you have 30 seconds.
as an extracurricular activity coordinator at Hughes, one of the things I did was when we didn't have the money to bring in extracurricular programs that kids were interested in, I simply went in the community, created programs and partnership with those entities in the community to come in and let their volunteerism. There's a lot of alumni that are currently not being included in the process as it relates to educating our children. And one of the things I would do would bring the community again back to the board and the board back to the community.
Again, I don't think anything is extra but extracurricular, and it shouldn't always necessarily be the very first thing that's cut, because dollar for dollar, it probably reaches out and touches more kids directly and deeply than almost anything else. What I would suggest is you have consistent funding, and when that funding is gone, you reach out to the Cincinnati community, white, black, rich, poor, west or east, and you will find a very wide network of alums for all our schools that are willing to step in and make sure that you have the same advantage as Old Times did.
We need to be intentional with extracurriculars. We need to tie them to education and the curriculum and not see them just as sport or ways to get people to come to the school. If we're more intentional with it, I need to be clear, there is not the money to do all that we need to do from extracurriculars for every school. And the answer is, as you've heard, that we need to reach out to the community to fill that gap. But we need to be intentional with that, such that there's equality as we even do that throughout the district.
Thank you. Let's give our school board candidates a hand.